Welcome to another episode of Destination Linux Podcast.
Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rocco. And this is episode 25 of Destination Linux. Hi, Rob.
Hello, Rocco. Good to see you, man. It's been a while.
Welcome back, brother.
Thank you. It's very good to be back, but you've done a great job while I was away.
Well, we fumbled through it, and you're back. And what are you running now, Rob?
Wow. So I am running MX16. So they've got, fairly current new release. And so I've got that running. I installed that, Rocco, on the family computer.
Right.
And really good experience. And so I decided to go ahead and put it on my system as well, one of my partitions anyway. So I've got that. I've been running that. I'm bouncing back between that and Linux Mint. And
I heard you were running Linux Mint Cinnamon. Is that
proper?
Right?
Yes. And I'll save this for another show, but there are so many areas there that I could talk about. I mean, we could make this a Linux Mint show because of some of the experiences. Primarily good, actually, a few bad, but I'll leave it at that. But MX16, on the other hand, has also been a really good experience, especially on the family computer because of their driver tools. That particular system's got an ATI video card in it. And the MX tools put the driver in, just flawless install there. It's actually running better on MX16 than it's run on any other distro I've put on it.
Wow. So wait, let me get this straight. So you installed a Linux operating system and it just works.
It just works, yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Well, there's a few little interesting things within the Whisker menu. So if you reboot and you've got just the categories set up, depending on where you have your category, it could be on the left or on the right. The categories will uncheck themselves. Oh. So you'll go to launch the Whisker menu and there'll be no categories. All of the applications will still be listed. Right. But I mean, it's an easy fix. You go into properties and you check categories again. And that only happens if you reboot. So not sure what's going on there.
I'm sure Dolphin will have a solution to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what about you? What are you doing?
Well, I am still okay. I think this is the longest install I've had for a while. It's still the Unity Ubuntu proper install, but I've installed GNOME and Cinnamon alongside of it. So I'm not really running Unity. So you can count this as a long install, but it's really not because I've been running GNOME for the last week. So, and
that worked out well. You were able to, so basically at login, you can choose which desktop you're wanting to boot into, correct?
Yep. I can choose Cinnamon or I can choose GNOME or I can choose Unity. So it's, I guess, the best of all the worlds, depending on what I'm in the mood for. But really, I mean, like I said, I haven't booted into Unity or logged into Unity since I installed GNOME and Cinnamon. So I've actually went into Cinnamon a few times to see how well it's going to run, but most of the time I've been running GNOME because there's just so much going on in GNOME right now, man. There's so many good things coming out for it. Hence the flurry of activity title last week. It's awesome.
So what are your favorite extensions right now that you've got set up?
Well, later in the show, we got the news about the poll for the extensions and stuff. But, Dash to Dock is obviously, for me, I mean, I know people like Dash to Panel because of the way it's set up, but Dash to Dock is like the best extension out there. And I was very disappointed to see in that poll that they had the, I forget what it was called, one of the sound extensions, but they didn't have the sound switcher that I use to switch the audio outputs, and that was the one I would have picked to be in there by default. But not everybody has, like 5 different outputs. I mean, if you got a laptop or something like that, you got one output, and
right.
So, but I'm just partial to that. So,
well, let me ask you, what are you doing for the menu side of things? You're just doing the full screen launcher.
I actually have Arc on.
Yeah.
And it's there, but I'm usually using the full screen. I have both sitting there. So I probably shouldn't have both because it looks kind of dumb right now, but I'm trying to decide which one I want to use. But Arc is actually pretty nice. So
it really is. You know what I think? I think given time, just a few little tweaks within Arc, I think that's going to wind up being my favorite default menu launcher. I mean, if it had startup shutdown built in and the ability to go in and change a few things. Anyway, I digress. We got a lot to cover, but
well, you did a video on Cinnamon menus.
Yes.
So which one is your favorite right now?
Oh, gosh. Well, actually, it's funny. So, one of the issues I had with Cinnamon was always kind of the menu launcher, and I never really took the time to dig in and go in and change a lot of the settings. At the end of the day, you can go in and tweak the default Cinnamon launcher enough, I think, to make it probably the one I would use the most at the end of the day.
Okay.
But there's a couple more that I haven't tried that people brought to my attention. So, there's still more to explore there. It's really opened up, Rocco, a world for me that, I just, how it is, man. Like, if you don't spend a lot of time with a particular desktop, there's a whole lot that's going on as the months go by, and you just don't know that, hey, such and such has launched for Cinnamon, and now you can do this. I mean, it's just like GNOME. If we didn't touch GNOME for 6 months or KDE for 6 days, if you didn't, if you didn't touch KDE for 6 days, you've missed a ton of stuff. So,
I mean, except for Xfce.
Yeah.
You could leave that for 6 months and it would come back and it would be exactly the same.
But I mean, you could have Whisker menu 4.1.1-A.
It's going to be the exact same. I'm sorry. I mean, look, Xfce is great. It's just there's not a lot of new development features going on there. So,
well, I will say this too about MX16, man. Just messing around with it, they've done an exceptional job, I think, with getting Xfce at a place that I think it should be. Giving you some options and adding in enough controls there. For example, you can set up sounds for the system sound schemes, or themes and things like that.
Well, I haven't run an Xfce desktop for a while, but MX16 and it's not complete Xfce, but it's partially is Peppermint. Both of them
Peppermint.
are really good.
Yes.
So if that's your fancy, then both of them you should check both of them out because both of them are really good.
By the way, your Peppermint video was awesome too, man. And the fact that you took the time to put yourself right in the center of that Peppermint disc, I thought was.
I debated so many times whether I should do that or not. I'm like, man, why not? So,
I loved it. That's right, man. There's a lot of news to cover.
There is.
So we better get at it.
All right, let's do it. The first and the biggest news, I think, in Linux right now is that Ikey Doherty is leaving his job at Intel and going to be a full-time Solus developer. Can you believe this? This is awesome.
That's awesome. Yes, it is. To be full-time into something like that, or to be able to go full-time into developing your passion there, I think it's a fantastic thing, both on a personal level and for the Linux community.
Well, they originally had a goal of 2,500, and that's when he said, that's when they'll be able to make the decision to have a full-time developer, and they're not there yet. But it was more, according to everything that I've seen him write and chatted on Telegram with, it's more of a personal decision for him than a professional decision. So, he said that he enjoyed his time at Intel, but he wants to make Solus his passion. Well, it is his passion. He just wants to put it in full-time development. And so Solus is where it is, and it's awesome the way it is. Can you imagine what it's going to be when he's able to put all of his time and effort into it? I can't wait to see what's going to happen, dude.
Oh, I agree. And I wish him, of course, we wish him the best in the transition and everything. And that's where, seeing that kind of commitment, that's where people, I think, in the community should really take an interest and support all that you can.
Yeah. I think that the Patreon actually got a bump from seeing the news, but I think that it should have, because we've always talked about supporting people or projects that you use that you would normally look at and say, well, I don't, but I use this every day. Let me support this project, that type of thing. So right. I think it's a great thing. And I think anybody that wants to donate, we will put a link to the Patreon page in the show notes, and we suggest you help him out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And best wishes to you, Ikey. So, Rocco, in the news here, we've got a new release, R9 of the LXQt version of ROSA Fresh. And they're saying that this can smoothly work with 512 megabytes of RAM, which is pretty darn awesome, really. And it's a light environment. It's all LXQt components are based on the latest branch. They're introducing a new PaleMoon web browser. We're starting to see a trend of that. There's quite a few browsers coming on the scene, or have come on the scene. And so I've never run not LXQt, but ROSA. Is that something you've tried?
Well, I have tried ROSA before, KDE version, and I forget what other version I did try. But their KDE version, actually, they have an actual KDE 4 version yet.
Correct.
And a Plasma 5 version.
As well as GNOME 3 and Mate, yep.
Yep. So I have tried them in the past, but I didn't stick with them. But this really, to say that it can work on 512 RAM is a pretty bold statement, man, because, I mean, that's not a lot of RAM. And I know that, systems used to run on that, but I don't know. I guess you're going to have a swap file ready and willing if you do that, because I wouldn't want to test that out. Let's put it that way.
Well, no, but I mean, to have that there, and it's just like, and we've discussed this before too, of course, with the trend of Linux distros moving to 64-bit only. So you're going to leave some users behind. And so if you've got a distro here that can smoothly run on that small amount of RAM, we're looking at that as going, really? You're still running a system with 500? Right. But there could be people out there that that's a perfect fit for. And so that's nice to see,
Well, it's if it can do that, it's definitely a good thing, because I actually had a comment on one of the videos saying about how, this guy, I forget the name of him, but he said he needs something that will run on 512 RAM, because all he did was browse the web and everything. So this may be a good option for him.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
all right. So we got KaOS. Their new ISO is out, and that comes with 5.10 of Plasma, the newest version. Qt 5.9, Qt. Whichever you prefer. Yeah. It also comes with, have you ever run Babe as a music player? It's one of the newer music players out there. It's like, I think it's actually still like a beta thing, but it's a promising music player. And Elisa, I guess that's how you would say it. That's another music player as well. And Snap and Flatpak support.
Yep. This is one I think to keep your eye on, because over the last year or so, they haven't, sat around doing nothing. They've kind of, I think, been innovators in some ways. Don't they have their own repository that's all Qt based?
Yes, they do. They pretty much everything that's in their system is from their repositories. So it's not like a full blown Arch type thing. It is It is their own repositories that you would run. So that may turn some people off, but hey, working for Ikey, right?
That's right. Well, another, and not many people are familiar with this distro. There's a small little distro group of guys that do this thing called Linux Mint. So they've had some updates as far as their beta is concerned with Xfce, as well as KDE. And initially they, of course, with their mainstay Cinnamon desktop, had a beta release, and this is for version 18.2. Now, within Xfce Rocco, you've got the Whisker menu. It's been upgraded to version 1.7.2. And so now you've got launchers that can be edited from the context menu. Desktop actions are now supported. Category names can be hidden in the preferences. The applications load immediately, and the new version brings translation updates and bug fixes. So definitely check that out if if you're into Linux Mint and specifically Xfce. And I gotta say, have you? Well, first of all, let me ask you: have you run Xfce on Linux Mint before?
I don't think that I probably, if I did, it was just trying it out. I don't think I've ever ran it as my daily driver.
Yeah,
and trying it out's been quite a few years. So, just
based off of my more recent experience, and I know we were joking about Xfce, I think it's their best version.
You think?
I think so. Well, I'll tell you. So
it probably hasn't changed in 3 years since I tried it.
Sorry. It's probably exactly the same, man. No, so I load up Linux Mint and with Cinnamon Desktop, and the first thing that I notice is my fan starts to run,
right?
Much more. And so I was chatting in a few forums with different people, and they said, "Oh yeah, we noticed. I've noticed it too. My fan runs all the time with Linux Mint Cinnamon, but you don't have that same experience with Linux Mint Xfce. Of course, the difference in maybe the resources required for all the desktop. I don't know, but it's fast, it's smooth with Xfce. So
well, hey, if it's fast and smooth, then maybe that's a good one to run.
Yeah. Now, what about the KDE version? Have you run that?
I have run that, and the big highlight of 18.2 beta is the fact that they're running 5.8 LTS for Plasma.
Right.
Everything else would be, as far as updates are concerned, they would all be the same for all of the versions of Linux Mint, like the X-apps are updated, that kind of thing.
Right.
But really, the only difference for the KDE thing is that they're running 5.8 LTS. And I'll tell you what, when I compared KDE Neon to Linux Mint KDE, and it actually ran pretty good while I was running it. So if you're a KDE fan, I think there were issues with screen tearing, but other than that, there were no crashing. Like when I was on KDE Neon, I would crash constantly. At least this last time, not the time before, not in the 5.8 series, but in 5.9. But again, Linux Mint sticks with the older versions, and maybe that's why it is more stable. So,
well, and yeah, you got a point there. The thing is with Kate. All right, so we've talked about this. So right now you're kind of focusing in on GNOME.
Yep.
And I've been back and forth with Cinnamon and Xfce here quite a lot lately. What's happened with KDE that you and I are not gravitating towards it, man? I mean,
look, they have a lot of innovation. They have a lot of new things coming out, and they really have a lot of exciting features coming out, including some news items we're going to talk about. But right now, my last experience with KDE Neon, I did a live show I installed KDE Neon from scratch. Like, it was just a bare install. I installed OBS and I forget something else to actually record Chrome to record the video. And I did a live show testing it out, customizing it the way I would want. And I had so many crashes during the live install. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. Like, it was unlike any other KDE experience I've had before, because 90% of the time when I ran KDE Neon, it was solid. And when it was 5.9.4 or something like that, 3, one of those. And it was not a good experience. And since then, I have switched over to GNOME, and not switched over completely, but I'm actually enjoying running it, enjoying, digging into it and seeing all the new features of it. And I'm not saying I won't be back to KDE, but right now, I don't know, Rob. I don't. To answer your question, I don't know what's going on with it that I'm not running it. It's just something in my mind, I guess.
What you and I didn't talk about this, but what we discovered in having our chats and stuff is that neither one of us have run KDE for some time. And the last time, okay, so before I put MX16 on the home computer, I keep Antergos on a flash drive, like just for purpose, you know. So I thought, okay, now I'm just going to put Antergos KDE on there.
Yeah,
you know, the family likes KDE. They can navigate it. You know, they feel comfortable with it.
Right.
Rocco, I installed it. The install was fine. Everything was just fine. But the fonts, out of the blue, the fonts look like crap. And I don't know if it's because KDE, something in their update, I don't know what caused that. I went in to fine tune them, you know, and made all of the adjustments that I typically make.
Yep.
And I couldn't, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And everything I did, man, the fonts looked horrible. And so when I put MX16 on there, here's Xfce's fonts blowing away the KDE fonts.
Yep. I don't know, man. I had a comment on a video saying, did they fix, and they were talking on the Antergos video, did they fix the font rendering? And then another guy came in and said, oh, well, you know, you got to do that manually. But the last time I installed Antergos, I didn't have a problem, KDE, with the fonts. But maybe there's something going on lately that it's getting messed up.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Well, I didn't mean to sidetrack you there. It just came to me that
it's all good.
that neither one of us have really run KDE for a while. So
no, and I don't really have a good reason why, because it's a great desktop. It's got a lot of features. To me, the only thing I can pinpoint is that GNOME is running okay, and there's no reason to switch.
Right.
I don't know. That sounds weird coming from me, because I don't have to have a reason to switch. But oh well. Okay,
well,
moving on.
Yeah.
Moving on, Rob.
Moving on. In other distro news, Zorin OS 12 Lite Beta adopts Xfce as a default desktop environment instead of LXDE. So, you know, here we are talking more about Xfce. So this is, you know, for those of you not familiar with Zorin, it's an Ubuntu-based distro. And, you know, they state here, especially on the light version, you know, it runs well on low spec machines. Fairly recent kernel, but more stable at 4.8. And it's also based off of Ubuntu 16.04 long-term support. So that would be one to keep your eye on there. But it's interesting. You see a lot of distros now focusing in on Xfce.
That, to me, is a shock that they would go with Xfce. I don't know why they would, though. Why would you switch from Xfce to from LXD to Xfce? I mean, they said about the customization, but on a level that they're looking at when they're creating it, seems to me like on a user level, maybe Xfce is easier to customize. But I would think that from a developer level, LXD would probably be just as easy. Or
I would say maybe on the developer side, but it may be on the user side,
right?
Where, you know.
Okay, sure. Well, Rob, have you ever wanted to encrypt folders on, say, you were running KDE?
All the time.
Well, last show we talked about encryption, and I don't encrypt my home folder.
I don't.
The two guys last week, Ryan and Dustin, they do. But there's a new app called Plasma Vault, which makes it easy to create encrypted folders in the KDE desktop. So this is different than encrypting your whole home folder, although you can use this on top of encrypting your own home folder and encrypting folders for super duper double protection.
Oh my goodness, that could be a whole different commercial.
But you basically tell it what folders you want to encrypt, and it will encrypt them for you. And you can, the idea is that it may be more secure because you can do it folder by folder. Yeah. So you don't have to, like when you encrypt your home folder, once you enter the password, your whole home folder is encrypted or unencrypted. With this, you can unencrypt one at a time. So,
and that's what now see, that's where I would be. That's where I would be more interested in one folder. You know, maybe I've got some sensitive info, pricing, and things for work that I'd never want to get into the hands of my competition, for example,
right.
You know, and so I would just want to encrypt that one folder. So that's where I think it's really handy.
Well, now you can do that.
That's
only
right.
On a KDE desktop, though.
Well, another reason to take a look at KDE for sure. So
always a reason to look at KDE.
Well, that's true. That's true. So, Rocco, there's a new PPA for Ubuntu 17.10 users to test the latest kernels. So, for example, kernel 4.11. So they've made that convenient for you.
Well, on the surface, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but there are issues out there with different hardware that I have talked to people about that they need the latest kernel for, and this gives them the ability to just easily install 4.11 and not have to worry about it. I know that it's a test kernel, but still, if you've got some graphics card or some thing that you need that's only available in 4.11, you know, you definitely want to run it. So,
Yep. Well, coming up too is something that you're experiencing firsthand here on the Ubuntu desktop. So if you want to dig into that, because we talked about it earlier with Dash to Dock.
Well, the poll has come back, or the survey results have come back for from Canonical and OMG Ubuntu about the extensions and which ones should be default. And we don't have time to go through all of these, but basically the clear winner is Dash to Dock. There's no question about it. Dash to Dock is like, and what's surprising to me was when you read the article from Ubuntu, they say that it's just because that one of these is popular, say like Dash to Dock, doesn't necessarily mean that it's still not going to make it. May not make it by default in Ubuntu GNOME 17.10. They're just trying to get a feel for what's going on, and maybe they'll like put it in some other way or something. It's not in concrete that say, hey, this extension works great, it's going to be default in Ubuntu GNOME. So Top Icons Plus was another one that and that is definitely a must-have.
There is no doubt. In fact, how many times we've said, why in the world is that not a default setup? I mean,
that should be default. I'm sorry. If the Dash to Dock is a preference, the Top Icons Plus is not a preference. That's something that should just automatically be there. So
I still, so your system tray icons are going to show up in that little lower left, out of place. It's like a hanging Chad. From it's so just stuck there. It's like it was a second thought,
Yep.
I just, it blows my mind. So I would love to see, just because you can go in and easily add these extensions and set all of this stuff up doesn't mean that everybody would either A, know how to do that, or B, want to take the time to do that. So Ubuntu, if any of you developers are listening, just put some of those simple things in place and just make it easier for your users. And I think that'll go a long way into your acceptance as you transition over into GNOME. So,
right.
Just my take.
Just your take. Well, like I said,
but Rocco agrees with me.
I think Top Icons Plus probably, to be honest with you, should be more default than Dash to Dock, because
I would agree. Yep.
I mean, it's something that should just be there. So rather than beating a dead horse, we'll move on to some better news.
All right. You've got it. So I was just going to ask you if you are using Firefox.
I am not using Firefox, Rob. I haven't used Firefox in probably, I don't know, a year, maybe less than that, but it's been a long time since I used Firefox. Now it's installed and I have it on, but it's not my daily browser.
Well, it's not mine either, but it continues to amaze me how Firefox is still the default browser of choice in most distros.
It has a following, Rob, that if you're running Firefox still, you most likely probably won't switch. It's just the way it is. If you're still running Firefox and you don't want to run Chrome or Chromium, Vivaldi and all of the other ones are really not going to pull you away from Firefox because you're using Firefox for specific reasons. Whether you like the add-on system or the About Config system where you can go in and change settings around, or you just don't want to use a Chromium-based browser. So, right. But there's good news for you guys.
Absolutely, Rocco. So now Mozilla's got a multi-process support version of Firefox. This is version 54. And, this is pretty big news, actually, because you're talking about significant increases in speed. And there's going to be some differences there for people who are using this with an Ubuntu, Rocco, if you'd talk about that for a minute. But for the rest of us, we should be noticing, as you install this, greatly improved speeds.
Well, according to this article on OMG Ubuntu, if you have the Ubuntu modifications add-on installed, which that comes by default in most Ubuntu distributions, when you have Firefox installed or pre-installed, it comes with the Ubuntu modifications add-on. You got to disable that in order to allow the new multiprocess part of the Firefox to work. So maybe that'll be changed. Maybe that'll be updated and you won't have to do that. But right now, you have to disable them and restart the browser, and then the multiprocess settings will be available. And I'll tell you what, this is something that they've needed for a long time, man. I mean, yep. Chromium's been doing this. Chrome has been doing this for I don't know how long. And you see even like desktop environments are picking up this whole multi-process thing where it's almost a must-have in the complicated world of computers. You have to have a multi-process service. Otherwise, you're going to have one slow, buggy software, whether it's a desktop environment, whether it's a browser or whatever it is. You have to look ahead and have this available for your program or for your software.
Yeah, it'll be using less memory. They go on to talk about their Project Quantum to take full advantage of modern hardware. Ultimately, their goal is to be the fastest, smoothest browsing experience out there. And, there was a time when Firefox first came on the scene, I remember thinking, now this is what a browser should be. But Rocco, that was a long time ago, So and they've fallen behind the eight ball. So to see this, I think is super exciting,
Well, they like you said, they came on the scene and they had a lot of great features that people loved, and that's why everybody went to it. Yep. But they've kind of like been stagnant, not as far as, security fixes or anything like that, but features and innovation, they've been kind of like stagnant. So this is good to see.
Well, it'll be fun to mess around with some other changes or additions. They have simplified the download button and the download status panel, various security fixes. They've moved the mobile bookmarks folder to the main bookmarks menu for easier access. And that was one thing that I have used it, off and on because it's pre-installed in so many distros. And then that was one of the things that I'd always shake my head and go, this is the most asinine bookmark system, because Chrome makes it so simple, Chrome and Chromium, it's so simple. And then you go back to Firefox and it's like all over the place. So I think some of those changes were warranted. So it'll be good to see.
I would just like to see how much of a real world difference it actually makes.
Yeah.
I haven't used it, so we'll have to wait and see, but hopefully it makes a big difference.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, Rob, did you ever run out of battery on your mouse? Do you have a wireless mouse?
I do, yes.
Did the battery ever run out on you right in the middle of this big, huge presentation and you're trying to, and boom, it's gone?
Well, no, but there have been inconvenient times, let me say, when all of a sudden, the mouse battery dies.
All right, I tried. But anyway, I am a big fan of, Logitech products.
Yes.
And most of the hardware that I have, mouse, keyboards, and that peripherals are Logitech. And I actually have the G900. Oh, look at that. Nice Logitech keyboard. I have the G900 mouse, and it is like one of the best wireless mice mice out
Mouses.
there. Mices out there.
Mises.
And the one problem with it is because it is a high grade with a high sensor mouse, it runs out of battery fairly quickly for a wireless mouse. Sometimes wireless mice will run maybe a week or two on a full charge. This will probably run a couple days, but that's because of all that's in it. Well, Logitech's new system, PowerPlay, is a wireless charging system. So basically, this is a mouse pad that constantly charges your mouse. Like, whether you're using it or whether you're not using it, it's charging your mouse.
I love this idea. This is one of those ideas where you step back and you go to you say to yourself, why didn't I think of that? Because it's brilliant.
It's absolutely awesome. Now, like I said, the Logitech mice are already like the G900 is already high tech with the best sensor on the market. Now, this won't work with the G900. You'll have to upgrade to the G903. And I was wondering what they would do. What would Logitech come out with next? Because they're pretty much at the top of their game when you're buying high-end gaming items. Yep. So this is what they've come out with. So it's got an integrated wireless receiver at the back of the mouse pad. So you plug the USB into that, and you can get a cloth surface or a hard surface. It has enough power to charge the mouse while using it. So even if the mouse was dead, like say you moved and you unpacked your computer and you put it on the desktop, you could put your mouse down and start using it because it has enough power to charge the mouse using it and still charge it. So awesome. Now it will take a longer period of time to charge. So you have about 2 hours of charge time if you're just charging it through the USB. But it'll be 14 hours to charge it fully charged from the mouse pad itself. But the cool thing about it is you can use it while it's charging. So it's not a big deal that it's going to take 14 hours to charge this mouse because you're using it as it's charging. I think it's awesome, dude.
It is great. I wonder if you could slide the lip of your keyboard over onto the mouse pad and
then have that charge. Hey, that may be one of their next things. You never know. They may come out with a wireless keyboard that it will charge both for.
That's right. Man, I got to say this. Do you remember the first time you got a wireless mouse?
Oh my gosh, it was years ago, man. No, I don't remember exactly when.
It was for me, it was a long time ago. But I remember like standing there in the store debating, should I spend this money just because this mouse is going to not have a cord attached to it? Is this something that I should purchase? And I thought, yeah, I gotta get this. So you take it home, you plug it in, and bam, and all of a sudden it's like immediately you will never go back to anything other than a wireless mouse.
There are certain scenarios where I will use a wired mouse, like I have another wired Logitech. I'm gonna forget what this is here. What's it? The G502 mouse that I use for gaming.
Gaming. I was going to say, for gaming. Yeah.
But most of the time, well, the G900 is the same sensor as the 502, so the 900 works great as far as gaming is concerned. But the other thing too that I wanted to point out of this is that now that the actual charging unit is at the mouse pad, you no longer have that latency problem where sometimes if you have the mouse a little bit farther away from, or the charging unit a little farther away, not the charging unit, the receiver.
The receiver, yeah.
If you have the receiver a little bit far away from it, it will kind of like hesitate sometimes, but you don't have that problem because the receiver is right there at the mouse. So
that's sweet.
Absolutely.
Well,
awesome.
I know what you're getting for Christmas.
well, the prices on these are like pretty high too. So like I said, you would have to not only upgrade the mouse, the mouse pad is $99.99, and then you would also have to buy a compatible mouse, which is either the G903 or the G703. So.
Yeah,
it may cost you some money, but it's the top end, dude. If that's what you want, that's what you're going to pay.
Give it a year, until they're copied, and then the prices will come down. So,
yep. All right. Well, we have an interview coming up, Rob. What do we have?
Yeah, Absolutely. You're going to be interviewing the Ubuntu Budgie guys, Rocco, and I, for one, am looking forward to this. That's something you have tried. I still have to install that up and give it a go, but looking forward to that.
Yep. So we will be interviewing Dustin and David from Ubuntu Budgie. So let's get to it. Okay, so we have two guys from Ubuntu Budgie here. Dustin, you were here with us last week. You are a system administrator.
Yeah, that's my trade.
And we have David, who is the project founder and leader of Ubuntu Budgie. Welcome.
Thank you, Rocco, and thank you for having me.
All right, so before we get into Budgie, everybody that comes on the show, we ask, where and when did you start out in Linux?
Oh, there's a question for you. I'm a little old timer, really. I started way back when it was Ubuntu 17.10 days. That was sort of gutsy and then moving into hardy. So I was playing around back then. I had enough of sort of Windows XP and that sort of stuff. And I was like, what, this newfangled thing? And I saw this Ubuntu thing on my magazine disc. It was a sort of a PC mag that I used to have. And so I sort of tried it and found a whole bunch of issues that I couldn't see the graphics. I couldn't see the audio, and said, what's all this business about? And that's what, to be honest, that really got me hooked, because I loved actually sorting out all those things. And back then, the internet wasn't great for things, but there was a great forum I found. It was called the Ubuntu forums, and that's where I sort of jumped in. Stayed there for many years, finding all sorts of different things, and that's where I come from my Linux background.
Okay, so do you have a developer background outside of Linux?
Oh, my day job, my paying job, yes. I work for a company called DXC, formerly HPE, formerly EDS. I'm a systems engineer by training. I work on pretty large, diverse systems, and but it's more sort of an office-based system there. This is a first time where I encounter and have a team working with me all over the world, literally all over the world. It's a great challenge and good fun.
That's awesome. All right, so you're into development. What makes you start Ubuntu Budgie? I mean, were you sitting there one day and decide, well, I just want to make my own distro? How does that work?
It didn't actually. It was I was knocking around. I was having a look around, and I saw this little article. I forgot what magazine it was. There. It was about a desktop called Budgie Desktop. I never heard of that one before, way back when. And this was sort of December 2015. And I think what happened was Ikey Doherty is just sort of revamped things and just done another relaunch of this desktop. And it's the first time I heard about it. And I thought, I'll give this a try. Never tried to sort of compile anything myself before, because everything I had installed for me. So I had a go, made it work. And then I was sort of looking around and I saw this little post on I think it was a Softpedia, Google Plus thing from a certain Mark Shuttleworth. And he mentioned in his little notes, if anybody wanted to have a go at putting this officially into Ubuntu, I would love to sponsor it. And I thought, well, give it a try. I've never done it before.
And you accepted the challenge.
I tried.
And you did it. And you were accepted as a core flavor, right?
Yeah, it was a big challenge, because this was back in February there. This is just before the 1604 launch there. And I thought to myself, go on, how difficult can it be? Can I launch something at the same time as 1604 Ubuntu? Oh, that was hard work. And I pushed out a really rough and ready ISO. And I thought, well, it's just going to be one of those things that everybody does, don't they? You just get lost in the midst of time. Strangely enough, quite a few people noticed my article I posted there. And that's where I met a couple of colleagues there that are still on the team. And they've been with me all the way through this journey as well. That's Hex and Udara.
So your core team that you just picked up on along the way, people helping out.
Absolutely. I've met many people on the way. People are sort of dipped in and dipped out. But we've got a couple of core people that has been all the way through there. Dustin has obviously joined in just after our main launch there, and Nicola has joined us halfway through our 1604 part of the fence, and Nias joined also at a similar sort of time. But met quite a lot of people along the way. Good challenge, good fun.
Okay, so you have Budgie that's from Solus. What are the core differences between Ubuntu Budgie and Solus?
Oh, that's an unfair question. Let's put it this way. And I'm not being politically correct, but one thing that's often confused nowadays is the idea that Budgie desktop is from Solus. What's happened is there's been a big reorganization now, and Solus itself, along with Ubuntu Budgie and Arch and Manjaro and all of those things, are sort of effectively now downstream to the Budgie desktop organization. So Ubuntu Budgie is part of the official organization there. So in many ways, we're all part of the same family. That's a good thing. We all share the same desktop. But the key things, I suppose, that from my view, and which was why I developing via Ubuntu, is the huge ecosystem in Ubuntu that we've got there. We've got a massive community that do help each other out, and it's just great to have Ubuntu Budgie as part of that overall big family.
Okay, so what would you consider to be Ubuntu Budgie's standout features, or maybe even your favorite part of Ubuntu Budgie?
I think my favorite part right at this moment is the welcome screen. It is one of those things that a lot of distros seem to forget. I don't know why. You often have users who sort of dip in and want to understand what this distro is all about. And unless you've got somebody really committed to have a look around, one thing that often I find out always irked me is that you just wanted information all about what the distro is there. You wanted an easy way of installing some software. You wanted an easy way of finding out about the distro. And I think Budgie Welcome is launched on boot up of the ISO. It's launched on first login. It takes you through trying to set up your system exactly how you want it. And it really just handholds you through the whole process, just to enable you to get a real running start of your system, just to tailor it the way you want it. That's what I think. I think is a great part of Ubuntu Budgie.
Quick question: Have you guys run across a bunch of other distros that are running welcome screens? Like, I know obviously besides Martin and Mate, but I've noticed that there's a bunch of forks of it, and I haven't seen it out there. But is it maybe just because I haven't had exposure?
Well, we forked ours from Ubuntu Mate, and Mate forked theirs from Antegros, and I think they forked it from somebody else. But where I have seen distros have tried, they haven't done it very well, unfortunately. What they've done is sort of open up a window with a whole bunch of web links to let this, that, and the other. Nothing particularly integrated, and I don't think that gives a really good experience to the new user. That's why I like the way we've developed the Ubuntu Budgie and welcome app.
Well, I think the welcome screen is one of the best things about Ubuntu Budgie, and it's something that, like you said, gets overlooked by new users or I should say by the users that are used to Linux. They run by a welcome screen and who cares? But that's something that makes first impressions on people when they first see the distro. And the Budgie welcome screen has pretty much everything that you need in a welcome screen. And there's one feature that I particularly love is the reset to defaults. That's something that is absolutely awesome when you start customizing things and then you realize, hey, I want to put it back to the way it was. That's something that's invaluable to somebody that doesn't know all the ins and outs of customizing.
The other great thing too, and kind of a pattern I've noticed, and like when we go through, we predominantly David, because he's usually first to respond on a lot of the support stuff. A lot of times it's really great because you can just sort of point people back to the welcome screen to even repair some of the issues they have, or as you mentioned, the reset, and even just accomplish things. So it kind of gives them a great intro back into that thing when they realize, oh, wait, I can go back in there and I can accomplish X, Y, and Z. And then they might actually start poking around and come across some of the other gems that are in there. And just realize it's a great source of not only information, but functionality. One of the, even my favorite thing in there, one of them is the ability just to tune for the VMs, where you can kill a lot of the animations and such right out of one little button. And then you don't really have to go hunting for it. And it's just way, 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 way beneficial when you're running things either in a VM or remote or anything like that. So that's just one great little gem in there.
Yeah, but it does exactly what it's designed to do. Not just be a welcome screen, but be an easy way for people who don't know how to do certain things. Be an easy way to, like you said, one button, you click off animations. If somebody has a computer that may be not up to specs in the actual specs of it, they can take the animations off and not worry about it and not have to go through 3 different places to find it. So
no.
I think the Budgie welcome screen is pretty awesome myself.
We've got some really exciting things coming up for 17.10 as well. So straight out of the welcome screen, as you've been guided through, we're going to be having a new option there, just to define your layout of your system there. So you can set it up in a sort of a classic Budgie way of working, or you can have an Ubuntu Budgie way of working, or dare I say it, a Windows way you're working. We'll have a dock at the bottom. And also we've been looking at more sort of customizability of it there. So as soon as you defined your layout there, a lot of people like to find their own themes and their colors and the icons and the cursors and things like that. So we've been looking at that, and we're just having these sort of ideas where you take through your layouts and your themes and your icons all one click, and you set it up really, really quickly. And that's what's I think is looking quite nice for 17.10. We're making good progress on that.
It's also nice because it kind of comes back to some of the same default stuff. This is something that I'm always a big proponent of, is just any operating system where you can get up and running quickly is a benefit. Like, not everyone wants to sit there and kind of hammer out every little tweak in a manual way and try to get up and have it exactly right. Whereas I find something that you've done a good job of is just like out of the box. It's saying you don't need to do a lot to it. And then if you do want to do something, it's pretty easy to do. And it, as we've discussed, it's one click. So even the theming options I find are pretty great because they're, again, same defaults. There's good choices. And it's one button to apply everything across the board, again, with a same default. So you don't really have to mess around and hobble it together. However, you can if you really so desire. Like there's still the flexibility there, but you can also get back to wherever you want pretty quick.
Okay, so moving forward, Qt or Qt, never know how to pronounce that.
Qt.
Cute. I say cute. So
Budgie is switching to Qt. So how does that affect Ubuntu Budgie, or does it even affect it at all?
A lot of people get confused when people say we're switching to Qt. What we're talking about there is really the pixels on the screen. It is that what people think that what we're going to do is sort of change wholesale. We're going a big KDE type thing with all the KDE apps and other stuff like that. Not really. All we're talking about there is really the bar at the top will stay to be the bar at the top. It's just, and the back end it's been programmed with Qt. The applications themselves will be the standard great GNOME suite that we have already there. So no, I don't. Going Qt won't affect the end users, because if it's done correct, and it will be done correct, the end users won't notice the main difference. They will look and feel and work just exactly the same. The advantage of going Qt is obviously really taking out the back end stuff, the things that people don't quite realize is there, that is working, that is really hard to integrate, because obviously GNOME are looking after their own desktop shell, home shell, and it's fully integrated with that. So as and when they move forward, it unfortunately Budgie struggles to keep up, and I can see why Ikey and the Budgie desktop organization is moving in that direction. It just allows the desktop to evolve in its own independent space and pace, and I think it'd be a great advantage to all concerned, all users of the desktop.
Something else that David was smart to look on really early is kind of how the GTK apps and the Qt desktop are going to kind of work together from a look and feel. My impression, and probably a great thing, is that we have to make sure that the applications don't look out of place, that they don't look like they're bolted on, they're an afterthought or anything like that. So you essentially don't even want to realize that you're running two different sort of sets of technologies in the back end between your applications and what your desktop might be rendered out with.
Well, my question is, does it pose a lot more work to switch over and make those apps look like they're supposed to be there that way?
Well, fortunately, the way it's going, we've got some great third-party developers out there who are sort of looking at this area there. And we made a great start in 1704, where we did the configuration and changes there to when you do install Qt or Qt-based apps there, it look exactly the same as the standard GNOME apps as well. So what we're doing is sort of looking at it in sort of reverse there, making sure that the GNOME apps themselves, the theming options that are behind there, work exactly the same and look and feel exactly in place there. So is it going to be more work? No, I don't think it's going to be more work there. There's some great work happening upstream in this area as well. And by the time we go Qt, I think there'll be some really nice solutions out there to make sure everything fits and feels exactly how people are using it today.
Well, from what I heard, I don't believe it's even started yet, the switch over to Qt. It's going to be starting soon.
Q2.
Well, we're at the end of it, so I mean,
yeah, the third party. Whereas the Qt company themselves aren't going that particular way. The way Ikey and his theming developers are talking about, they believe that they can actually make the desktop itself feel thoroughly integrated with the GNOME applications as well. So yeah, good faith on that. Now, how fast that will happen, that really does depend on what's happening upstream in the Budgie desktop organization. So it's still early days there. So we've got another release of the Budgie desktop coming for 17.10. We haven't yet made our decision what was going to happen for 18.04. That's sort of less than 12 months down the line there. So we have to remember that as well, that that's a potentially a long-term support release. So we have to make a decision probably October time, which direction that we want to go for that particular release there. Do we want to see to go on a Qt-based desktop if it's available at that time, or if it's coming in much later? Do we want to keep using the tried and tested and really polish up the GTK-based desktop? That's a decision that we have to make, and we have to make that decision within the next 4 to 6 months.
Have you been leaning any specific way on that?
Not really. What we are dependent, obviously, is on the upstream as well, and it is extremely early days there. We've all just seen some pictures, some initial bit of code as well as being pushed out, but there isn't really a desktop as such that's based on Qt. So it is really too early to say which direction are we going to take at this moment.
Yeah, I guess that's a bit of a magic 8 ball on that one when you got nothing to look at.
Absolutely.
Okay, so as Dustin had pointed out before, the one thing that drives Ubuntu Budgie, in my opinion, is the sane defaults. So how do you go about picking the defaults, or are they incorporated into the desktop already and you just go with what's there?
If you look at Ubuntu Budgie and the way it is developed, it was developed in many ways the way the early 1604 community wanted it. So they were asking for certain applications. They wanted a certain way those applications work. In terms of the desktop itself, they decided that they didn't particularly want the default layout itself. They wanted to work with a dock bar, so we chose Plank and those sort of things there. So we've been working with the community there, and the desktop has evolved in that direction. So it's not a traditional classic Budgie desktop as such, but we want to take that into account in 17.10. And as I mentioned before, really, as soon as you log in, you're going to be presented with that option. So what do you want to see? How do you want that layout to be to set up? And you could decide yourself what you want, rather than us out of the box just saying, well, this is what you've got, use it, customize it afterwards.
Well, I think that's something that lacks in most welcome screens out there. Number one, you have the welcome screens that, like you had said, don't really do much of anything besides give you a couple links to forums and IRC chat. And then you have the more polished ones like yours and Ubuntu Mate's welcome screen. So the welcome screen itself is something that is the first thing that people will see. it's the thing that will help them through getting their desktop set up. And the one thing that people, in my opinion, want to set up on their desktop the most is not just, additional drivers and stuff like that. That's important, but how it interacts with them and what it looks like. So that would be awesome features to put in there to, hey, where's the panel going to be? What theme do I want to use? What icons do I want to use? Because that's an area where no other welcome screen really has right now. So I think that would be awesome.
We're looking forward to introducing that in 17.10. But while I'm saying it will introduce it, of course, some eagle-eyed 1704 and 1604 users there will probably have noticed that we've been pushing out updates as we've been moving through as well. So people have been getting updates early. We'll be getting a lot of feedback as well. And the idea, it is a bit of give and take. We need that feedback. And so as we develop and as we polish up what our 17.10 release is, we got some good stuff there that people are, if they're looking, can see and use it. But for the new users of 17.10, obviously that this is going to be, I think it's going to be a good way of introducing the whole desktop. So making sure it fits in their workflow, the way they want to use a desktop.
So what is your main thrust as far as the community? You talk about the community. Is that forums? Is that a Google Plus community? What is that?
Fortunately, now I was persuaded, and I was a little bit dubious there of Facebook as well as G+, because I've always been a G+ type user. But what I'm surprised is that our Facebook group and the number of users has absolutely exploded. So a combination of G+, and the Facebook community are sort of giving us feedback, and we're giving them options via polls and pushing out ideas themselves, and we're trying to get that feedback as well. That's the way we sort of interact with users of Ubuntu Budgie.
The other thing to throw in there too is a lot of the support comes in through the Gitter application, which is just, it's another chat sort of thing, like a HipChat, Telegram kind of thing. So there's predominantly a lot of support there, but we have open discussions as to what that aspect's going to look like going forward. Like, is it best to have it in there? Maybe, we pull it out into a forum. Maybe we piggyback on the Ubuntu forums. We're just sort of hanging around some of those ideas right now, trying to figure out sort of what's the best way to interact and give people the access they need and the help they want, and maybe even leverage the larger Ubuntu community to do so.
Okay, so how can people, say I'm a developer and I want to contribute to Ubuntu Budgie? How can I go about doing that?
It's really straightforward. All our code is out in the open. It's all on GitHub itself. We've got an organization on GitHub called Ubuntu Budgie. You can see all the issues that we've got there. As Dustin mentioned, that we've got our GitHub chat room. We have had a lot of interesting chats with potential developers as well, to just come in and have a chat with anybody within the team. You don't have to be a developer in many ways. One of the things that we'll be pushing out in the next week or so are fairly straightforward things that we find time consuming, such as taking screenshots, feeding that into the welcome app, feeding that onto the website. We have our web wallpaper contest coming up there. An easy way of getting your best photos and stuff like that onto the desktop is really just to contribute that way. See, the Ubuntu Budgie is open to all sorts of people. It's not just people who cut code itself as well.
The other aspect too is, like, there's the translations through Transeffect. Like, we got that going somewhat recently. There's been a bunch of stuff coming in through translations. There's also a bunch of other things, like there's still packaging, there's still, website work. It could be things even as simple as like proofreading and making spelling corrections. It's anything that you can do or you want to do, really. As David mentioned, it's not just developer. I mean, I'm not punching code. I don't have enough of a skill set in the bigger picture to do a lot of that. So, you can get involved in pretty much any way that you want.
So, but you also have a Patreon page. You have multiple ways on the website to contribute financially if you can.
Yes. We raise money via the website, PayPal, Patreon. We just opened a way of Bitcoin as well. If you want to contribute in Bitcoin stuff there. What do we do with the money that people donate? Well, several ways in many ways. We've got, obviously it's an open source desktop or distro. Doesn't mean it's free for us to use. I think we've got our own bills to pay as well. We've got our website bills, server-based bills that we have to pay. That's the sort of thing that the money goes towards. But over on top of that, we're also looking to give back to developers that has helped us all through as well. We've just recently given a small donation to one of our key developers there who helped us out right in the early days to actually launch 1604. We were pretty impressed with what he did, and we were glad to just give it a little bit of money just to help him out on his own particular distro as well. So we that's the sort of thing that the money goes towards.
Well, I think that's an awesome way to distribute the money, not just for bills, but to give back to people around the community that have given in. So I think that's pretty awesome. All right. So you talked one or two things about what's coming up. So what does lie ahead for the future of Ubuntu Budgie?
Immediately is obviously coming up. Also Ubuntu works on fixed time frames there. So everything's laid out on when things happen. So our immediate date that we're working to is mid-August, when is the feature freeze. What that means is that all the key bits and pieces of the desktop should be really there or thereabouts, and thereafter we should be just looking at bug fixing and polishing. That's our key date is mid-August. Obviously, October will be our release date. Immediately after that is what we have to do is apply to the technical board. And this is our first application here of requesting, if we feel that we can do it, of applying for LTS status. That's not automatically given. We have to convince the technical board that we have a viable distro with a growing community, and we have to demonstrate that what we've been doing over these releases there, that we've been meeting the goals of Ubuntu as well. We've been meeting the timescales and that sort of thing. So that's an application that we have to make soon after the 17.10 release there. And if accepted, we will work towards producing a really nice 1804 release.
That's something new. I didn't realize that you actually had to put an application in to be an LTS distro.
Absolutely, yes. And we also have to make a conscious decision of the length of time that we want to look after the LTS one. So whether it's going to be a 3-year or a 5-year time scale.
Well, I always found that kind of interesting that I think a lot of people always assume that an LTS is a 5-year coverage. And I found that one interesting that the flavors can actually make that distinction and choose to do a 3-year term.
I am coming from the outside, so some of this stuff is pretty new to me. So yeah, I didn't know that. All right. Well, I have one last question for you. Who is the target audience for Ubuntu Budgie? Is it new users? Is it experienced users? Is it everybody? Who is the target audience?
It's targeted towards fairly new users. It's not brand new users, but fairly new users who want to use Linux or just investigating Linux, but they want a more traditional way of working. So they want to work with a panel, they want to work with a menu-based system, but they want to make it look good as well. They want to make it feel at home, that it is their system. And that's the way we are orientating to the desktop towards, is making a system that works for you. And that's what we're trying to aim for. That is one of our goals.
Well, I think that you have hit the mark on having a modern looking desktop geared towards people who, Dustin had touched on it before, where you can just install the system and you can just basically start to work. You don't need to customize everything because the defaults are so good that you can just start doing what you normally do. And I think that's where Ubuntu Budgie hits the mark.
Thank you, Rocky.
Does any of you have anything else you want to share? You want people to know about?
Dustin, you want to talk about your Snap project?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's actually a good point. So right now, I've just started doing some preliminary work on snaps just to kind of figure out how they're going to fit in with Ubuntu Budgie. It's obviously a big push that Canonical has going on. And so I've been starting to get involved higher up in that, more on the Snapcraft forums, and trying to understand how we can make it work for us. One of the things, even David did a little bit of work on this, was trying to figure out how to snap up the Budgie applets, the panel applets. There's a few technical challenges there that we're trying to work through. And I've had some contact with some people in the developer forums about like overlay systems, because the Budgie applets are required to be in a specific location, which is a little counterintuitive to sort of how snaps work, because they're back in the /snap sort of directory. So there's a few little challenges there, but there's some things coming down the pipe that will probably address that. So we're looking at that, and maybe we could even potentially look at whether we want to snap up welcome, things like that. There's, it's the direction that Canonical is pushing, and we're trying to evaluate how it's going to fit in with us, and what and how and where we would snap, if anything.
Okay, coming from a person that's not completely familiar with snaps, what exactly are you referring to when you say working on the snaps? Like, I notice in the welcome screen you have an area where you can install snap support or Flatpak's already. I think Flatpak's already installed.
Yeah. So, sorry, creating the snaps, we're not talking about the underlying system to utilize snaps. We're talking about packaging software as a snap. So
to
the
be used
process,
anywhere?
In theory, yeah. I mean, if it's in the Snap Store, you can install it. So anything that anyone snapped up, regardless of whether it's part of Ubuntu Budgie or Canonical itself or any other dish or flavor, you can utilize it because it's contained, right? And the store is fairly universal out of Canonical. I mean, you can spin up your own independent snap. I don't know, I'm going to call them repos, but they call them stores. You can run it that way. The work that people put in and part of the packaging flow, they just end up in that store that you can search, from the command line, or whether I know there's some websites that help you kind of figure out what you want to install, but it's pretty much snap install package name. And it's very straightforward. And the packaging process, while fairly early, I would say is easier to grasp than traditional Debian packaging as a whole. Not necessarily better for certain things, but it's much easier. I'd say it's not even necessarily easier. It's more approachable at the high level. So we're just looking at, again, like I mentioned, how it's going to fit in what we're going to utilize it for. It seems to be a little more popular for user land, meaning like applications. Like if you wanted to install, I don't know, Telegram,
right?
You know, that would be like, once you have the snap built, updating it's fairly straightforward. The more the investigation comes in on the initial build. And I mean, even that could be said of like Debian packaging too, because once you have like your watcher file set up and everything like that, I mean, it's a couple of commands and sort of away you go. But I don't know, I find the snap method just a little more approachable, and that might be a beneficial thing for newer people coming into packaging, because there's a lot less of sort of the legacy, I'm going to call it legacy cruft behind Debian packaging, and not implying that it's worse. That's not what I'm saying. It's just there's more to it, right? As David could easily attribute to. And I mean, I'm usually bugging him quite a bit for the Debian stuff that I've been attempting to do. And so I've, you know, there's a lot of work to be done there, and with snaps, and it seems to be one of the more, it's just the way it's kind of going, or it appears to be going. It's a little early to tell. I mean, if you want to debate snaps, Flatpaks.
But I see the key thing behind snaps is to break down this idea that once you push out the release, you have to wait for 6 months for something new to come along. That's one of the key things I see for Snap, because effectively what you're doing there is producing something that is readily updatable, and people can get the latest stuff really easy straight out of a store. You click, installs, it will self-update, that sort of thing. There is, from an end user point of view, it will make will give you access to software very straightforward in a timely manner, and it will break down this idea of everything on freeze for the next 6 months as you're waiting for the next release.
The other aspect to snaps too that's very interesting too is the fact that they're transactional, which means that if you install some sort of update, I mean, in theory, depending on what the application is and how it's contained, you can actually roll back to the previous version fairly easily. So that's another big benefit to it. And because of the fact that they're contained, you can install something as a test. And when you blow it away or uninstall it, you get rid of all those, again, because it's contained, you get rid of all those dependencies. It's much cleaner to even just do testing of applications in the short term. So there's a lot of benefit in that aspect as well.
So how far do you see snaps going? I mean, do you see at some point that you won't have programs installed traditionally and it'll all be snaps, or what?
Today, no, not yet. I mean, because snaps are still under active development.
Well, I mean, in the future, I'm talking looking down the road. Do you see that as a option, or is that just not what it's intended for? In theory, it's an option because they can always add the feature sets that they need to make it more approachable for the system base. I don't know if that's necessarily the goal of what snaps are. The impression I get today is that it's more user application current on top of sort of a stable base. You know, if you look at snaps in conjunction with an LTS, it becomes very appealing because your applications can be modern. You know, that's why a lot of people even like things like the Arch, because you can get pretty much anything that's bleeding edge. And as people start packaging in the snap format and more applications become available, you sort of get that same sort of like the Arch user repository. Like it's approachable for a developer, whether they're a Linux user or not, to actually build these applications and keep it up to date with like a lower barrier to entry, with less maintenance. It's easier to keep on top of it, you know, and it solves some of the questions of how do I do this, because it's fairly contained in what you actually need to do. If you're a developer and you understand your build process, like if you're doing the traditional, you know, make, install, and you understand that you can leverage auto tools as a plugin in snaps, then it's really straightforward to create a snap. You know, it's what maybe some of the edge cases might be a little more difficult, but it's much, much more approachable. And that's the big selling point to me. And if they keep pushing it to be cross distro, that's also
a good thing, because then again, the developers like, okay, what's your lowest barrier of entry to getting software packaged that's going to have the most touch? I think that's why traditionally Ubuntu's been fairly successful, and why a lot of developers target, even doing traditional packaging, because Ubuntu's everywhere. Everybody's making these packages. Therefore, a lot of people tend to use and target Ubuntu. And so if you're just beginning out, you can just sort of add your hat to the pool and sort of keep going. But with Snaps, as the support for Snaps becomes, reaches the other distros as well, it's beneficial to the entire ecosystem, because now as a developer, you can create one snap and your touch just goes even beyond what Ubuntu is, which I think is a good thing, because then you get more people actually packaging for Linux, which I think is really the high level 50,000 foot view goal, if you think about it.
So is there a major difference between, now that we're going off of Ubuntu Budgie topic, but is there a major difference between Flatpaks and Snaps?
I honestly cannot speak to that, because I haven't done any Flatpak work. I've chosen that in my recent, deciding to spend my time in open source. I'm trying to focus more on Snaps because it makes sense, and more packaging on the traditional method, because that's what's going to give value to our project. I mean, David does the brunt of the work right now. So hopefully at some point we can start alleviating some of that to give him time to kind of do other things and focus where either A, he wants to, or B, he needs to. So that's the way I look at it anyways.
Hey. Okay. Well, look, guys, I really appreciate talking to you. Both of you have to come back when 17.10 releases, and we will talk about all the new features of Budgie and where it's headed and whatnot. But let me ask you a question before you guys leave, totally unrelated to Ubuntu Budgie. Did you ever want to buy a Linux t-shirt? Segue. No, a good friend of the show, Michael Tennell, has designed some t-shirts, and we are not getting any profit from plugging this t-shirt. I just think it's a great idea. So,
well, you better get a t-shirt at least.
Nah, the idea is that Linux is so widespread that everyone uses it every day, whether it's from 80%, it powers 80% of the internet, 100% of Android devices, tablets, Chromebooks. So he has designed a t-shirt that says Linux is everywhere with a little Tux logo on it. And he has, there's multiple colors, multiple sizes, shipping to everywhere. And it's not just a t-shirt. It's a hoodie. It's a woman's t-shirt, long sleeve t-shirt, and a sticker as well. So you can purchase any of those. And I'm not going to say out the link because it's too long, but teespring.com, and I'll give a link in the show notes for that. But if you're interested in getting some Linux wear, you can go over there and purchase a t-shirt or something else. The last thing I want to say is a thank you to the Patreon supporters who have already supported Destination Linux. You can go to our website at destinationlinux.org and get all the info you need. Every post will be there, from the audio links to the video links to the RSS feed, contacts, our email, comments at destinationlinux.org if you want to email us, or our Telegram group, destinationlinux.org/Telegram. So I thank you guys for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate you carving out some time to talk to us. And like I said, we'll have to have you back on.
We would love to. We enjoyed it ourselves, I'm sure. Haven't we, Dustin?
Absolutely. So, yes. Thanks for the opportunity. And, well, you can always ping me on Telegram, and I'll relay to David because he's adverse to Telegram.
You need Telegram, David.
We'll see.
All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Rocco.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Destination Linux podcast.